Hi, welcome to CHIRLA TV. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us today, this wonderful Saturday. Today we'll be talking about a couple of interesting subjects. Today we are joined by two wonderful attorneys from CHIRLA. Perla Esquivel, she's actually an attorney at CHIRLA. Her work focuses on representing detained and non-detained immigrants in immigration court. And also Richard Lucero, who is also the senior staff attorney at CHIRLA and is the head of the legal defense unit at CHIRLA. So welcome today.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So we know that this topic is really important for the immigrant community, right? So we have to know how to protect ourselves with knowledge. So what do you do when you come face to face with an ICE agent or with a cop, right? So this could be applied anywhere, right? Is this something we can apply?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, all of what we're going to be talking about today is what do you do when you're in front of a law enforcement officer generally, and with the focus, of course, on what happens if you get stopped by ICE.
So I understand that everybody has certain rights under the U.S. Constitution. Regardless of your immigration status, you are protected. So what are some things that people should keep in mind, they should remember? What are their rights that they can execute and have to defend themselves?
Well, one of the most important rights is your right to remain silent. You're not obligated to tell a police officer, an immigration officer, anything. If they want to question you, you have the right to remain silent. However, it doesn't work if you don't use it. So it's very important, again, when you're questioned by an officer, you're not obligated in any sense whatsoever to say anything at all. You have the absolute right to remain silent, and as soon as you exert that right, they should stop asking you questions.
So we should remain silent. Do we need to show anything, any papers, anything at all, an identification? Of course, they should not be false documentation, right?
Of course, you should not be presenting any false documents. Obviously, if you're in a car and the police officer is asking for your license or registration, you should have it. This is also a great time for people to get AB60 licenses if they don't have them, if they ever run into that situation. But it's really important to note that if you have any false documents on you, anything like that, it's actually against the law to be presenting false information to any federal officer. So don't start lying, saying, oh, I'm actually from Tennessee, when you're actually not. But again, if they're forcing you to answer questions, you should always exercise your right to remain silent.
Should I let them know about my immigration status at all? Where I'm from?
Absolutely not. You do not have to say anything. Usually when a police officer or an immigration officer is asking you a question, it's not to help you. I mean, they're trying to use it against you. So like they say, you hear on TV, anything you say can and will be used against you. That's 100% correct.
That being said, so we know first we have to remain silent. Don't carry any false documents on you. We're telling people not to lie, as well as don't offer any information from where you're from, right? Do you have the right to speak to an attorney as well?
You absolutely do. So if you want to exercise your right to an attorney, you can tell the officer, I'd like to speak to an attorney. So if you don't have someone that you can contact, if you don't have an attorney, most people don't have an attorney on speed dial, but you should have a plan, and you should also exert that right, because as soon as they start asking you questions about your life, that's something that you need to counsel with an attorney with before you know how to answer, or to have an attorney with to tell you don't say anything.
What could they potentially be signing if they're signing something?
Well, that's a very good question. You could be signing your voluntary departure. We've seen occasions where people go to the airport, to LAX, for example. I've had several clients where the immigration officer has asked them to sign something while they're asking them questions. People sign it, and what they're signing is they're renouncing their green card or their lawful permanent resident status right then and there. They send them outside. People have no idea what they're signing. So it's very important whenever you're speaking to an immigration officer and you're asked to sign something, whether you're detained, whether you're trying to enter at the border, whether you're trying to enter at the airport, never, ever sign anything unless you're 100% positive of what you're signing.
We really want to take advantage that we have your expertise here, and we want to discuss how these rights can be applied depending on what setting you're at. So how would these rights be applied if ICE or a cop comes to your home?
So if ICE or a cop comes to your home, first and foremost, if they're knocking on your door, you need to see either identification, and they need to identify themselves. There's so many times where ICE comes and they say they're just police, they're just wearing a jacket that says police, and so you think it's an officer, you want to be helpful. So it's very important to get some ID, see what they're looking for. Do not open the door unless you know exactly what's going on, and most people will not know exactly what's going on. So if that person is knocking on the door saying, we're looking for this particular person, you can always be talking to the door, maybe crack a window open and saying, what are you looking for? Because if they're showing up just randomly, there's no reason for them to be coming in at all. They're kind of like vampires in that sense. If you invite them in, then there they are. They're inside of your house. So always ask, who are they? Are they looking for someone in particular? Do they have a warrant for that person? Because if they're there and they're knocking on the door saying, we're just looking for this particular individual, but there's no warrant, there's no right for them to detain and seize that individual, then there's no reason for them and you to be having a conversation. And if they have something, any kind of document, then they should slip it under the door or hold it up against the window. You might get a little bit of pushback, but that's you protecting everyone that's inside of your house.
So we'll be right back, folks, with more information on how you can apply these rights depending on what setting you're at. Today we're talking about your rights in case ICE comes into your home. So we've established that you should ask for an identification, do not open the door, ask for a warrant. Anything else we should keep in mind in case ICE comes and approaches your home?
Yeah, it's very important with respect to the warrant. First of all, ICE rarely has a warrant. I've been practicing for 14 years. I've never seen an occasion where ICE actually has a warrant. But before you let them in, they do have to have a warrant. The warrant has to have specific information, has to be signed by a judge. It has to have the address, and it has to list what they're looking for. Are they looking for an individual? Are they looking for a particular person? So again, it's very important that this information is included in the warrant before you let them in.
If they force themselves in?
If they force themselves in, even though they don't have a warrant, it's very important. If you have your phone, any kind of information, any kind of recording device, record their activities so you have proof that they entered the home without a warrant.
Is there anything specific we should look for on the warrant?
You should make sure that the name is spelled correctly, that it's the right name. Sometimes it's someone else. The address is correct. Again, it needs to be signed by a judge. Sometimes it'll be something signed by an ICE officer. It needs to be signed by a judge in order for it to be valid. And again, on that warrant, if it's asking for a person, that does not mean that they have the right to come into your home. It's just regarding seizing and detaining that particular individual.
And on that note, it's very important too, even if it's a police officer, they also have a warrant. What ICE always does in LA, which very often, is they'll tell you that they're the police. They're not the police. And the reason they say that they're police is they know that people, when they hear that, they're gonna automatically open the door. Same goes for the police. Even if the police show up at the door, they have to have a warrant to enter your home, and you have a right to ask to see that warrant.
What are we telling folks if ICE approaches your workspace?
If ICE approaches your workspace, you shouldn't just start running and skedaddling, right? You shouldn't do anything that makes them think, this person, now I have a reason to believe, or I have probable cause to believe that they don't have status. Again, if they're entering your workspace, they also need to have something showing that they have the right to be searching the workplace as well, which is something that they have to have together with your employer. So if they just show up to your workplace with nothing, and they're not saying that they have a warrant, then they really shouldn't be there. But it's really important, more than anything else, and we've been repeating this, stay silent. You are like a ghost. You're not saying anything. You're not saying, oh no, ICE is here. They know that I have a removal order. Don't start saying those things out loud. Of course, if they have a warrant and it has your name on it and it has your address and it says, we're looking for this particular individual, take a look at it. But again, if it's not signed by a judge, if it's not signed by any other official with authority, then they don't have the right to be detaining you at work as well.
Does ICE have the right to ask for people's names?
ICE does absolutely have the right to ask for your name, but again, you still have the right to remain silent, but they can ask for your name.
And what about if ICE comes and catches you in a public space?
In a public space, the same rights still apply. You have the right to remain silent. If you're not actually under arrest, you have the right to walk away. They have no right to detain you at all unless they specifically tell you that you're under arrest. So the same rights apply in public as well.
We understand what to do if ICE comes to our home, to our workplace, to our public space, but knowing your rights is definitely the first line of defense. But of course, it won't be the last. You might be actually taken by these officers. So what can people do, their family members, their loved ones, once you are detained or a loved one is detained? What should they do? Where can they go?
Yes, if you have a loved one or a family member that's detained, you can go online and search for ICE Locator. That'll bring you to the website where you can actually input some information and you can locate where your loved one or family member is being detained. If you input their name, their date of birth, and what country they're from, it'll pull up exactly where they're being detained. If you have their alien number, it'll make it that much easier. So once you type in that information, it'll tell you exactly where they're being detained, and then you can begin the process of trying to go visit them or to contract with an attorney to be able to assist them.
And it's also important to note that sometimes they're not there on the system when you look it up. That might be because they're in transit. But at the end of the day, if you think someone is detained, you should either contact an attorney or go also to the ICE Locator system, but contact attorney as well, because not everyone will just be there for 10 hours. Some people might be immediately removed.
Still, you got it, folks. Visit the website for ICE Locator to find your loved ones, and we'll be right back here at CHIRLA TV.
All right, welcome back. Thank you. I'm your host, Diana. This is Edgar, and we're here with some attorneys from the CHIRLA Legal Services. Please, we just really want to end the show with reminding folks what their rights are. Can we just go over them one more time?
Yes, so as we mentioned earlier, your most important right is your right to remain silent. That right doesn't work unless you use it. Again, you're not obligated to say anything when you're confronted with an official, whether it's a police or an immigration officer. You also have the right to an attorney. You have access. You have the right to access an attorney, and also you have the right to actually walk away when they're questioning you if you're not actually told that you're under arrest.
And it's also important to remember that if they come to your house, they need to have a warrant with that particular individual's name. They don't have the right to come into your house. Don't just let them in. And also remember that if you think that your family member is detained, you can always search for the ICE Locator and put their information in there, and that's how you can find them. And if you can't find them, immediately talk to or find an attorney that can help you on your case.
Mm-hmm. And we also talked about how you shouldn't be lying, you shouldn't be carrying any false documents on your body, and how you should really go to a lawyer to process any paperwork when dealing with immigration. Is that correct?
That's correct. Anytime you need legal advice, very important, go to an accredited lawyer who can give you the proper advice and who's not going to make your situation worse.
That being said, I heard that CHIRLA just recently opened a new department within their legal services.
That's absolutely right. So we just, the past few months, we've been preparing and opening up a new office in downtown LA on 6th and Olive, right in front of Immigration Court, for our removal defense unit, which is led here by my supervising attorney, Rich, where we represent people who are in removal proceedings. So whether they're in a detention center, the Lanto, Theolacey, or Music, or whether they're not detained, so that we can focus and really have our resources ready for those people, because we know that people like us and our community really need assistance in navigating one of the more complicated legal worlds. It's almost as complicated or probably more complicated than tax law. And if you're in court, you shouldn't have to fight that by yourself. Imagine someone who's doing their own criminal case by themselves. Now imagine them doing it with something as difficult as immigration law. So for that reason, we opened this new office, and then we're focusing on this work, and we're really excited to be able to give these services, especially in these times when people really need the help.
So what detention centers are y'all focusing on?
We primarily focus on people who are detained in the Los Angeles area. Most of our detained clients are detained at the Adelanto Detention Facility, and we also assist people who are detained in Orange County, in the Theolacey, and the Music Detention Center.
Great, great, great. So somebody who needs these services, how would they be able to gain them?
At CHIRLA, we offer consultations. You can speak with an attorney regarding your immigration case on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings. The consultations begin at 8 o'clock, but we have limited space and we can only see 20 people every single day, so be sure to get there early. And if you're able to get in, you will consult with an attorney who will review your case. And if we accept your case, we usually provide free legal services through funds that we get through the LA Justice Fund and also One California.
They can also go to our website and click on our Warriors for Justice page if they think that someone is detained. Obviously, someone who's detained isn't going to be able to come to our offices, and so we've made a simple questionnaire and a survey in English and in Spanish so that people can input that information for their family member, and it'll generate them on a list where we can then call and make an appointment to go see them in the detention facility.
What kind of information should the people trying to submit information to this website have on them prepared already?
The A number, obviously the name, the date of birth, where they're from, and any information they have about that person's case. And that person should also put their contact information on there so we know who to contact.
But we also know that these services aren't free, right? So you both are paid employees, luckily. And so can we discuss a little bit about what we have in your hands today?
Yes, so this is information about our gala. Our gala is coming up on November 14th, 2018. We're very excited about it. We do get funding from grants from the state of California, from the Los Angeles Removal Defense Fund, but we also have private donors, and we also rely on our members, people to become members, and for people to just give donations out of the goodness of their heart. The gala is always a lot of fun. There's a silent auction. There's artwork that's going to be auctioned off that day. Always very competitive because we have really cool art pieces. But be sure to go to our website to support our work. We can't do this work without the people in our community also being able to give us the freedom to take all the cases that we have. A lot of cases are difficult, they're complex, they're not as simple as they used to be, especially now with USCIS NTA memos, ICE picking people up. So we need the support of our community, and of course you're all invited to our special gala. We have a Facebook page too, I think, right?
Yeah, so I understand it's November 14th, 2018. Go to the largest, the biggest fundraising event for CHIRLA, which is your annual gala. So we'll see you there. And thank you so much for joining us today here at CHIRLA TV. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us once again. We're here with our guests, two legal attorneys from the CHIRLA Legal Department, and we're continuing our conversation in regards to knowing your rights. So we've discussed what somebody that's undocumented can do if they're approached and arrested. Can somebody that's a resident, like Edgar here, be safe from deportation?
If you are a lawful permanent resident, you can be subject to being removed or deported on certain instances. If you are convicted of certain crimes, you can still be removed or deported. We always advise people, if you're eligible to become a U.S. citizen, do it immediately, and that gives you a little bit more protection. But there are certain crimes that do make you removable. For example, domestic violence can make you removable. Possession of a drug can make you removable. So again, it is possible that you can be removed if you have lawful permanent resident status. On that same note, we always tell people that if you've been convicted of a crime and you want to travel, to consult with an attorney first, because what could happen is if you leave the country, try to come back at the airport, at the border, your criminal history is going to come up when they search your information. So again, if you've been convicted of a crime, it's very important that you speak to an attorney before you travel. A lot of people just think, oh, it was just a misdemeanor, it's no big deal, it's not going to affect me. It's not true. To be removable, it doesn't matter whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony. It matters the specific code that you were convicted of. So again, if you've been convicted and you want to travel and you're a lawful permanent resident, make sure you consult with an attorney before you travel.
And people at home here in California, they can go to the CHIRLA offices where you guys could be able to assist them, reach out via the hotline as well that you guys have as well. This way, they can come to your offices and your legal team of experts can assist them as well, correct?
Absolutely. And we not only have our consultations at our office on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, but we also help with citizenship. We've had a citizenship department since the legal department existed. So they can also help apply for citizenship if they qualify.
And where do I sign up?
Why haven't you become a citizen, Edgar?
I'm working on it. I'll be visiting the CHIRLA offices. I know you guys are in downtown now with your new office, so I'll definitely be visiting you guys. Also, I want to see, I've heard that the UCIS now is deporting people. Is this rumor true?
Well, they're not necessarily deporting people, but the way that they conduct their business and their policies have changed. As of September, USCIS can now refer somebody to immigration court. It's called a notice to appear, and start the removal proceedings if they deny an application that you submit. So, for example, if you submit, if you have somebody who submits an adjustment of status application for you because you're married to a U.S. citizen, and USCIS denies that application, and you're not in status at that particular time, they can now refer you to immigration court and start the removal proceedings. Before, USCIS would usually just deny the application, and that's where the process would end. Now, USCIS has the discretion to go ahead and file a notice to appear, send you to immigration court, or even worse, if USCIS does not think there's enough evidence to approve that application, they can submit you to immigration court right away without asking you to submit more evidence to show that you're eligible for that type of relief. So right now it's very important. If you're submitting an application with USCIS, it's important to go to an attorney who knows what they're doing so that you make sure everything's submitted correctly. Because if you submit an application and you don't write the information correctly, or there's information missing, USCIS may directly send you to immigration court and start removal proceedings against you without even giving you an opportunity to try to correct the errors on that application.
It's really important to speak to an attorney, just like Rich was saying, not a notario. A lot of people in our community go to notarios, and oftentimes when we see someone who went to a notario, it's because they messed up their case, and sometimes they messed up something so bad that it's permanent and we can't do anything. So go to an accredited representative or an attorney.
Are you familiar with the Flores Agreement yourself, Diana?
I am politically aware, but I feel like not everybody shares the same interest that I do. So I think it's really important that we establish what the Flores Settlement is, please.
So really briefly, the Flores Settlement is something that came down from the Supreme Court over 20 years ago to say how the government was able to detain or not detain minors that were coming into the United States. It happened because they used to be detaining them in horrible conditions. That Flores Settlement has governed how the U.S. Treats minors, and now the government wants to pretty much change it so that they can hold entire families in detention in violation of that settlement. There's a public comment period open right now. So if people want to say something, because what they're doing is essentially turning family detention centers into basically concentration camps. We don't want to repeat history. We don't want to do internment camps again. And we don't want to give the government that power to detain entire families in violation of the settlement that has protected minors and their families for so long.
Is there anything that the general public watching today can do to help not let that happen?
Absolutely. The first thing that they can do is vote. The second thing that they can do is go on the website, search for the Florida Settlement public comments page, and then say exactly what they feel. We don't want the government to be taking away these protections from minors. We don't want to be creating another area in our country that we're ashamed of.
You heard it, folks. You heard it. There's something that you can do to not let history repeat itself. So we'll be right back with our legal representatives from CHIRLA. And thank you for joining us again.